It's Mike Stibbs.
Just make sure it sounds sexy, Stibbs.
Lord Almighty, how can you stand Arizona? Your fair skin must be burning down into your absent soul. Mike, we can barely hear you. It sounds to me like you called us from inside a hole. But your phone calls lift me higher, like the ERA of Mark Pryor. Your hair looks like it's on fire. You're Mike Ferrin. You're just a hunk of burning love.
Well, look, it worked. All I had to do is leave a Twix in the outfield, and there he is.
I can't turn down chocolate, especially outfield chocolate.
Oh, especially with a cookie crunch and the caramel and cookie crunch. Oh, yeah. So if you missed
Josh,
we killed him. We finally decided he's just not worthy anymore.
I don't blame him.
Yeah. So last night it was the big return of Kyle Schwarber and John Lester to Wrigley Field as members of the Washington Nationals. And between innings, Chris Bryant left a candy bar, a Twix, in left field for Kyle Schwarber. Just doing things that teammates do. Schwarber proceeds to eat it, and then he hits a 2-run home run. So get your Twix, kids, if you want to hit home runs.
Do you think that irritated the pitching staff that he set Schwarber up for success like that? I actually think it was, to me, when I saw the replay, it looked like it was a bunch of the little fun-size candy that he left out there.
But Twix was the one that got mentioned, so apparently he had a thing with Twix.
It was really funny, though, because Schwarber kind of looked at it and, looked around for a second, like, did somebody throw this? And then he looked at it, and Brian kind of waved at it. Was like, all right, and then he picks it up. So it was a really funny moment.
It was, and the good news is the good guys actually won last night, which was amazing in and of itself. Speaking of home runs, though, Shohei Ohtani, good grief. Did you see the tweet from CC Sabathia? The side by side?
Yeah.
So last night, Ohtani hits a home run on a pitch that is almost a foot above the top of the strike zone. It was measured at 4.19 feet above the ground, and he's basically swinging at the letters. And then earlier this season, he had a home run that on a pitch that was about 6 inches off the ground, and Sabathia had both of these side by side.
Yeah, that was on Friday night or Saturday night at Fenway, and his backside was basically into the first base dugout as he hit it 370 feet over the green monster.
Incredible.
The guy's ridiculous. Like it's JJ Watt was tweeting about him last night, right?
Yes.
Like he does something amazing every day, and yet somehow it feels like we don't talk enough about him. I mean, we haven't seen anything like this. If you remember your baseball history, John, and I know you do, that when Ruth became prominent enough as a position player, he basically stopped pitching. There were a few one-offs, and there was about one season where he overlapped like that. What he did was not what Ohtani is doing. Now, Ohtani's not going to hit 60 necessarily, but he has a chance to revolutionize the game because teams are looking seriously at two-way players now, guys who can do both. And Ohtani is proving not only that it's possible to do it, but to be exceptional at it. Now, I'm not sure that anybody else is going to match his level of athleticism, and hit 460-foot bombs and throw 101 miles an hour. But it's remarkable, and it is so much fun to watch. And the only disappointing thing is that the team isn't better. The pitching staff isn't better around him, really.
It is. And then, of course, last night, you get the good, then you get the bad. Mike Trout limps off the field with a calf strain, and we don't know. We haven't heard anything new about because he was supposed to have an MRI, I thought, today, wasn't he?
Yeah, it's only 1 o'clock Pacific, and they've got a 7 o'clock game, so I would assume it's another couple hours yet.
But, the Angels have lost, what is it now, 10 of their last 14, something like that, despite, you arguably have two of the most talked about players, most exciting players in the game, but you go anywhere with them.
Yeah.
And you're the second tier team in Los Angeles. So you kind of get buried by the Dodgers anyway.
I think you can argue right now that the Angels have more star power than the Dodgers do, at least in terms of where Ohtani and Trout are in the universe, and the secondary stars like Rendon and, I guess you go to Upton next are guys that are certainly plenty famous. And remember, they've played a lot of the season without Anthony Rendon in the lineup, and he was back last night, and he's obviously a great offensive player. But right now, I just saw Mike Petriello from MLB.com tweet about this. 85% of their wins above replacement total for the entire roster is tied up in Ohtani, Trout, and Jared Walsh. And so basically, and Walsh is the first baseman that essentially supplanted Pujols and is having a great year. I mean, and I mean a great year. He's hitting over 300 and, slugging over 500 with power, and like, they're a very top-heavy, mostly position player-oriented group. They haven't played good defense. Their bullpen isn't very good. Their rotation has not even pitched to the level of okay. And so you're kind of hoping that you catch lightning in a bottle to be an 84-win team, but they have significant needs on the pitching side, and they have significant long-term needs to be able to support what is this, dynamite core with two transcendent talents right at the forefront. And, maybe you can make the argument that you're never that far away from competing if you have those two guys in your lineup or on your roster. And I think that's fair to say. But you have to do a better job than they have over the last really 8 years of augmenting the roster.
And the problem is, 84 wins is not going to get you in the playoffs, I don't think.
No, it'll get you close. I mean, that's what it is it's like, close enough to be in spitting distance.
I suppose, but, you've got, looks like a 3-team race in the East, 3-team or 2-team race. If the Angels can get into it, 3-team race in the West. Sorry, Stibbs. Sorry, Mariners are,
You're not watching much of them. I get it.
I don't know. I mean,
are you?
You're right. They could get
more than you'd think, Mike.
He is surprising. I
got excited about Kelnick.
Why not? I mean, his Saturday night was incredible. Or Friday night was homer and 2 doubles. That was great.
Awesome. Yeah.
I mean, Stibbs is tweeting more about the Mariners than he's tweeted about the Broncos, and that's
wow.
Well,
it's because they don't have Aaron Rodgers.
Well, Aaron Rodgers gets there. Yeah.
That's true. Aaron Rodgers gets there, all bets are off. Speaking of the Dodgers, last night was the big debut of Albert Pujols, and second at bat, drives in a run. Now, we talked a little bit about this yesterday, Mike. The Dodgers' struggles against lefties is probably the one thing you could use to sell Pujols getting this gig. But do you still expect him to be around, let's say, in early September when a certain team from LA travels to a certain team from St. Louis?
Well, I mean, I think you're probably discounting the second thing that would attract Pujols, and that's the chance to add a little more jewelry to his fingers. This is
right, but from the Dodgers' perspective, is he going to be there the whole time?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't think they're looking at it like, hey, we're going to DFA Albert Pujols. I mean, they have a history of doing this with guys like Chase Utley and David Freese and even back to Jim Thome. I mean, adding guys who are, real pros, superstar players that are on the tail end of their career. Freese wasn't that, but he's, like great postseason performer and terrific makeup guy, great teammate. And so they have a history of adding that. And Pujols still hits the ball hard. And what you saw last night was, him taking advantage of where the holes were and the way the infield was positioned, and delivering a base hit with men in scoring position, which is something that he still has a knack for being able to do that. So I think those are all qualities that they want and need, and I think that they really value the intangibles too. I mean, for a data-driven organization, I think it gets overlooked a lot how much they value that kind of player in there to kind of control the room and for their players to learn from and from their organization to learn from him. And I think that that's one of the things that they talk an awful lot about is how much Chase Utley's influence still permeates everything that they've done, not just in the clubhouse, but in the way that they prepare. And I think Pujols is another one of those guys that they're, basically they're like strip mining data, right? Like they're going to try and pump as much information as they can on Albert Pujols to make their processes better. And that's really smart. That's something a smart organization does.
Speaking of smart organizations, and you can question them a little bit, that their rebuilds, I'm using air quotes, are a little unorthodox, but you can't argue with the results right now for the San Francisco Giants. They're 36 run differential. So, it's not like There's not like they're a team that's getting outscored in the games that they lose. They're 9 games over 500. They're still leading the West Division. And I saw this stat yesterday, and it was pretty remarkable. Last year, the Giants' starting rotation was the 24th best in the big leagues in terms of WAR, wins above replacement. Just talking about the starting rotation. So far this year, they're first.
Yeah.
The last team to make this big a jump from one season to the next in terms of starting rotation WAR is the 1980 Philadelphia Phillies, who are famously the first ever World Series champion Philadelphia Phillies. So there's some historical precedence here for what they have done. And again, it's not like they're doing it with the biggest names out there. Plus, they lost one of their best name players, Madison Bumgarner, to your Diamondbacks.
Yeah, so I think it's really unfair to call what the Giants have done a rebuild, because they have made it pretty clear from the time that Ferrin took over that they were still interested in being competitive. And I think what you saw in previous iterations of the Giants trying to build the organization was an effort to try and commit to trying to put a good product on the field. Now, they didn't always succeed in like the late Barry Bonds years, but they spent money in free agency and trades and developed from underneath. And that's what the Giants are doing. Their farm system is very strong in a short period of time. They continue to add to it. And you're right. They have made a really good run at adding from the outside credible starting pitchers, and then getting guys like Johnny Cueto healthy, which certainly helps too. All these guys are free agents after this year, and with the exception of Logan Webb. And that actually is a real positive for them too, because if things were to go south, let's say that, the offense struggled, or their bullpen, which is, wasn't an issue really the last couple of years, is one now, and doesn't get any better, and they start to fade from contention, they have some really attractive trade pieces, and people tend to pay a premium for starting pitching versus position players at the deadline. So I think they've been really smart about the way they've done it. They were competitive until September in 2019. They narrowly missed the postseason last year. I think they are a team that, if you were paying attention, you could go, okay, I can see what they're doing. They're going to play matchups to the nth degree to try and get any little competitive advantage they can, and they're going to try and win with decent starting pitching that they were able to take advantage of a depressed market on. And boy, they've done a hell of a job of that. And yeah, I don't think that they're going to be at the top of the division when all is said and done, but I do think that they're going to be a team that we will talk about in the wild card race as being in the mix. I think they're probably a little short offensively, and I don't think their bullpen is great. But the other thing is that nobody in the National League is particularly great, and to this point, they've stayed relatively healthy, which is really the key. I mean, there are multiple teams with double-digit guys on the injured list right now, and it's probably going to exceed that in the course of the next 72 hours when more teams start putting guys on the IL.
Yeah, no kidding. By the way, quick shout out to former Blue Jay Darren Ruff of your San Francisco Giants. On the other side of the bay, we mentioned Oakland. We talk about teams that, the record doesn't necessarily match run differential. Another week goes by. A's are still in first place, albeit by a half game. They're still 8 runs underneath the break-even mark in terms of run differential. The Astros have slowly but surely been catching them. What's it going to take for Oakland to keep Houston from blowing past them on the proverbial launch pad?
I really think that some of it is that they're going to find a little bit more consistency offensively. I actually like the A's rotation and their rotation options a little bit better than Houston. I don't think Houston is going to blow by them. I think Houston could pull even with them, and I think the two will be in a race all summer. But I like this A's team still. I think they have some intriguing bullpen options. I think, we haven't really seen Matt Chapman get super hot yet. They have some better offensive days that are coming ahead for Sean Murphy, who I think is going to be we're going to look back in a couple of years and be like, man, that guy's one of the best two-way catchers in baseball, power and really good defense. So I think those things, stand out for Oakland. I mean, they could use more production from shortstop, and they're going to have to figure out second base once Jed Lowry, whatever the alien that's invaded Jed Lowry's body leaves and he returns a little bit to normal. Although nobody loves putting on the Kelly Green quite like Jed Lowry, but it's just amazing. Every time he goes back there, he rakes. So I think they're going to end up being fine in the end, and I think it's going to be an interesting race because the Astros are going to get a boost next month when they get Framber Valdez back. But there are a lot of questions I have about their young pitchers and how they're going to stand up to the 162 game schedule because they don't have that experience at the big leagues, and I'll be very curious to see what happens come August and September. And neither team is in great position to be able to trade for impact help, but we know Billy Beane is always aggressive. And, on Memorial Day, he'll get a sense of, okay, this is what we need to do. And he'll spend the next 2 months improving that roster with a chance to compete.
By the way, if you look at the expected wins based on run differential, Houston should be up by 6.5 games right now in the West, but they trail by a half game so far. It's always interesting, especially early in the season, to look at some of these skewed up run differentials and figure out, well, how come this team's ahead of this team? It's sometimes you got it and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you're really good at winning the close ones, and maybe Sundays you take off, you get blown out by 8 runs.
I think when you're in Oakland's position and you're -8, right? Like I think that's something that over the next 30 or 40 games gets corrected to feel a little bit more normal. And I think that's going to be the case in some places like Miami. I think still has a positive run differential, right? Even though they're running 4th, that's going to change. They pitch really well, but their offense is terrible. So like you're going to see that change some. You're going to see some of those teams that are currently running negatives flip to positives if they're close to it, within like say 20 runs. And vice versa too. But it's a good indication to show how real a start is or not. And if you had a team that was underachieving, say, like let's say Houston is, that's 6 games worse, it gives you at least a sense of how talented the roster is, even though they haven't banked those wins so far.
By the way, if you do visit your official athletics website, the banner across the top still says "Rooted in Oakland." So
they're not going anywhere. I mean, it's all theater.
I know, but I just want to see the day if they do announce a move that they add the up to "Rooted" for the banner.
They're going to visit Vegas next week, but I mean, that may just be because I heard they had tickets to go see Cirque.
Is the strip back open again, by the way?
I don't think it ever closed, did it?
I don't think it did either.
Well, you know what I mean. I've heard from people that have been in Vegas, and there's like, it's a ghost town out here. No one's ever out here.
Yeah.
But
I mean, maybe I'm assuming the shows aren't quite back yet, but I don't know, man. I mean, first in line to see Copperfield if you're the A's ownership group.
That's true. That's true. Make a team disappear. Poof, gone. Speaking of things that are disappearing, are you going to have to start to memorize the call-up list for your Diamondbacks? I mean,
holy smokes.
How many different injuries do you have? I mean, 2 starters are on the fritz. Mad Bum left early last night. There's about 4 or 5 position players that are on the IL. I mean, what is going on down there?
5 of the 8 starting position players. 2 starting pitchers on the IL, plus Luke Weaver likely to be added to it today, and then Bumgarner leaving to start early with a groin issue. So that's 4/5 of the starting rotation.
Was it 85 Cubs?
Yeah, that was the comp that I made yesterday, was when they lost all 5 of their starters at the same time.
Oh, so, I remember.
So 4 starting pitchers currently on the MASH list, on the injury report. They're questionable. Belichick's filling everybody out as questionable. 5 starting position players on the injured list. The opening day closer, the most promising young reliever, the first base coach who ruptured his spleen in spring training and suffered a broken rib and still isn't back full time, and the hitting coach who had Achilles tendon surgery. Other than that, things are great.
Gee-many.
Taylor Widener is on a rehab assignment today at Reno, and so is Ketel Marte, and they should be back relatively soon.
Just to show you how much of a sadist I am, there actually is, if you look it up on YouTube, there is the season highlight video for your 1985 Chicago Cubs, and I actually watched the damn thing. I don't know why. It was such a bad. I mean, of course, they're coming off the 84 season. Everyone thought they were going to repeat. They started hot, and then
they were in first place at the All-Star break. Yeah.
I know. Sutcliffe goes down. Eckersley goes. The whole damn pitch. I remember when Larry Gura, they dug his old bones out, and he started a game in Cincinnati. I'm like, all right, we're coming back. We got Larry. Oh, never mind. He gave up 3 runs in the first, and the game was over.
Yeah. Sutcliffe, if I remember right, blew out his hamstring trying to beat out a ground ball.
He did.
I think that was the case. What was the year that Dunston and Sandberg got hurt at the same time and they had 2 months of Mike Brumley and Brian Noche as the middle infield? Was that 86?
I think it was
87?
It was either 86 or 87. I'm thinking it was 87 because it was the same year that Dawson won the MVP.
Okay, then that was definitely that was definitely 87 because that was also a team that ended up being what they were in first place towards the middle of the season and then they finished last, which led to the great Bernie Lincecum line about Dawson's MVP on a last place team. He said he single-handedly prevented the Cubs from finishing ninth in a 7-team division. Yeah.
And I was still excited because it was like, well, at least I can watch the Hawk.
Yeah.
You know,
Paul Noche. That was it.
Cheapest home run hitter of all time. I mean, they got him for his song. Oh man! Speaking of
old,
we are old. We are old. Hawk's one of my.
I wasn't born yet.
I know you weren't. You don't have to rub it in.
I know. I just had to say it.
I saw your retweet today. Dan Dickerson of the Tigers back on the road.
Yeah.
Is he the first? Is he the first broadcaster that's now back traveling with his team?
He is, and White Sox Radio is. Len Casper and Aaron Jackson did the games from Minneapolis last night. So radio broadcasters are allowed to travel if the team has reached the 85% vaccination threshold. If everybody in the radio party, including their road engineer, are vaccinated, and the team can get a booth on the road, which there are some places that are still not quite sold on doing that. So yeah, it's overall it's certainly a positive development, but we're only at 16 teams, I think, that are at 85%, and we're not all going to get there. So there's a few, including the one that I worked for, that does not seem like it is trending in the proper direction.
Yeah, I was about to say I don't think we're going to be hearing the Cubs radio broadcasters on the road.
Yeah, I don't think Pat's going on the road right now.
Yeah, and it still confounds me. You know,
I don't understand it either.
I took the damn vaccine. I'm just fine. I'm just fine. Joke.
I took it. I took my second shot on February 4th.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that because you you volunteered.
Not to brag.
So 3.5 months.
You've been clean.
Yeah, I was tired for 2 hours after the second shot.
I didn't feel a thing.
Come on.
Not my wife.
Well, that's because my immune system's better than yours.
I had the antibodies and never got sick. So take that.
Think of how many people you got sick then as an asymptomatic carrier.
I was home. I was home the whole time. We spent most of the time doing these shows from home. The wife.
Don't worry, we had the shower curtains.
Oh yeah, that's right. We still have our shower curtains up here in the studio.
That worked.
Though the building is now maskless. So that's
So
we're getting there. We're getting close.
That's great.
We're getting close.
Good. Knock on wood. We at some point get back somewhat close to normal.
How many? Let's see. We got the Twins, the Brewers. How many teams are going back to 100% here in the next month?
I think just about everything. Diamondbacks are the rest of the season tickets went on sale yesterday.
Okay.
I think the Pennsylvania teams are July 1st, I want to say, is when they can go back. Ohio is right about the same time. So, yeah, I mean, I think most places outside of maybe California and I don't know what New York State's, although it's changing every day, right? So the more people get vaccinated, the less spread there is for the virus and the better chance we have of getting, approving full capacity. And, and then people have to make a choice as to whether or not they want to go. But it's certainly trending in the right direction. By the time we get to the All-Star break, we should be, just about everybody is allowing full capacity.
I will be curious to see how some of these early games go. I don't know if Minnesota is going to be a great test case because the Twins have been stinking it up here recently, but just to see how many people in Milwaukee and Minnesota decide to attend when those gates open up full.
Well, I think it depends on municipality, right? Like Georgia had allowed the Braves, I think, on the last homestand to be at full capacity, and they had 30 some odd thousand. So,
Yeah.
I think it's just going to depend on the places that you're at. And the Brewers are doing something cool in that they're still allowing. So if you're uncomfortable, but you want to go to a game, once they get back to full capacity, they are going to offer a couple of sections. I think it's like 2 sections that are socially distanced still. So you can go to the game and feel like you're at least away from other people if you want to do that. So, I saw that one today as well. So, again, like it's just it's happening faster than I thought it was going to. I mean, we're probably looking at I would think by the beginning of June, most everybody has a date for when their seating restrictions are going to be expired.
Meanwhile, we'll still be at 50% capacity for the College World Series. So,
is that what the plan is?
Yep, that's what the NCAA said, and I don't think they're going to budge. So,
well, when have they ever made a bad decision?
Imagine if Creighton makes it,
or Nebraska makes it.
Yikes!
Yeah. Now I don't know if either of those things are going to happen, but
unlikely.
It would really suck. I mean, both teams are leading their conference, so you never know. You never know.
Yeah, I mean, you got to win the Big East, and who knows what's going to happen with the Big Ten teams this year. So that's
I am definitely afraid that that the one team that wins the league gets in, and everybody else gets aced out, because I don't know if their RPIs are going to be strong enough. I'm genuinely concerned.
So I've been, I follow this probably not as closely as I did 5 years ago. That's the hazards of working for a major league team, but it does sound like the RPI, just humble brag. I don't want to mention that I work for a major league team or anything like that, but it does sound like the RPI is less of a factor this year, because there's no good way to calculate it, because so many teams aren't playing midweek. If you're in the Big Ten, you're limited to league play, right? And it's cool what they've done with the pods, but it's, you're going to have to you rely on the regional advisory committees a fair amount.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you're the Big Ten, like Nebraska's pretty good, Indiana's good, Michigan's good. Like those are 3 teams that you feel like should be in the field right away, and they've got a good case for 4 or 5 as usual. And I think it's easier to evaluate the talent there than it is maybe for some of the mid-major spots, except for Fairfield, which they better get in at 33-1. Like, I mean, that's a hell of a year.
I want them to get in, and then some idiot decides to put them in as a 4 seed, and they end up going to Gainesville and upsetting Florida or something.
Oh, Stony Brook. Just be Stony Brook, right?
Exactly. We want another good story. Who wouldn't like to see a little Fairfield action?
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go. Some baseball talk with Mike Ferrin.
Would we put them up at the Fairfield Inn in Omaha or not? Are they a sponsor of Unsportsmanlike Conduct?
They are now. The dad jokes are running wild.
Hey-o.
All right. Well, try not to get on the IL before next week. I know everyone
always
else
in pain.
is. Yeah, that's true. You are day to day. See you, Mike.
See you guys.
There he is, Mike Ferrin, Sirius XM MLB Radio, and yes, he works for a major league team.
People forget that.
The Arizona Diamondbacks Radio Network. All right, we'll come back, and apparently the Twins announcers were seething last night. We'll see if they were actually seething. And speaking of college baseball, quick update on where all of those hosting teams are. And I also looked up the number of players on NFL rosters between Nebraska, Iowa, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. They count before we get to Michael Bruns. Coming up, 1620 The Zone.